DarpTech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on July the 7th in the year of our Lord 2025. Starting off here just a few minutes late. Sorry about that. Got tied up with some things. But let's go ahead and click over here. This is the video you're watching right now, my episode 1616. Let's scroll down here to the description box. And we have information from Wendy Bell Radio, The People's Voice, Devory Darkins, and Robert Gouveia. Okay, I do want to give a shout out here. Just a second. Let me copy this in. All right, down here. So this is how you make a comment, folks. You just put stuff in this where it says comments, add comment, put some stuff in there, and click the comment button. And isn't that nice? Okay. AG Spur just started following my channel, so thank you very much, AG Spur. I appreciate that. Debbie BS commented on my episode 1615, and Debbie BS also commented on my extra 401A and 401B and 401C. So thank you, Debbie BS, for your comments. I really enjoy reading your feedback, and I appreciate your support. Okay, let's get into this. We're going to start off with Wendy Bell. Unimaginable horror. She's right. Let's go ahead and see what she has to say. I want to get this. There we go.
Well, welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. I want to pull up a few of the, I want to read some of these just ridiculous. Death toll in Independence Day flood in Texas. Now nearing, I think it's over 80. They're thinking it could be well past triple digits. News reports indicate that the number of people confirmed to have died in the Independence Day weekend flooding reached nearly 80. This is Kerrville, Texas. This is Dateline. This is yesterday. So, search for 11 missing girls and a counselor from Camp Mystic and others continue. During a press update Sunday morning, Kerr County Sheriff Larry Letha told reporters at least 59 people are confirmed to have died in the devastating flood. And then, of course, they've got people who are, we know, it's just going to add to it. That said, I want to pivot and I want to talk to you about what Rosie O'Donnell. Now, she's not significant to me. I don't care about Rosie O'Donnell. These people don't have the ability to affect me anymore because they're dead to me. She said something so despicable, blaming President Trump. And now there's this narrative that because of cuts to, Doge cuts to the National Weather Service or what have you, there weren't enough meteorologists. There wasn't enough notice. There wasn't enough X or Y or Z, which is bogus. I want you to hear Rosie O'Donnell from Ireland still throwing stones. Ridiculous. Listen.
And what a horror story in Texas. The flash floods in Texas, the Guadalupe River. 51 missing, 51 dead, more missing. Children at a camp. And when the president guts all of the early warning systems and the weathering forecast abilities of the government, these are the results that we're going to start to see on a daily basis because he's put this country in so much danger by his horrible, horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law. As Republicans cheered, people will die as a result, and they've started already. Shame on him. Shame on every GOP sycophant who's listening and following the disastrous decisions of this mentally incapacitated POTUS.
Wow. I'm not sure what I want to say is something that you should hear me say. But fresh off of a $16 million defamation lawsuit, or should I say, well, yeah, defamation lawsuit. George Stephanopoulos floats this idea that Rosie O'Donnell just put out there, that because of Doge, because of President Trump, because of this one big, beautiful bill, somehow you can connect those dots. And you can say that that's why dozens of people are dead in Texas. Listen to his question of this reporter who's live on the scene of the carnage.
Maria, we're also learning that there were significant staffing shortfalls of the National Weather Service's offices in the region.
Significant staffing shortfalls of the National Weather Service in that region. That's the question. Listen to what she says back to him. She does not say that. Listen.
You know, George, as of right now, the local county officials really didn't want to address that just yet. What they are telling us is they expected between 4 and 6 inches of rain. That is what weather experts told them, the National Weather Service as well. They also knew that in remote locations, they might get anywhere from 8 to 10 inches. But this amount of rain in such a short amount of time, it was very difficult to navigate. And when the Department of Homeland Security Secretary was here just yesterday, she acknowledged this was an issue. She was going to take these concerns to the White House as well and try and see if there was anything they could do to revamp the system. She says the president is committed to it.
What do you mean revamp the system? How do you revamp a system when there's weather? How on earth are you supposed to control that? That is the dumbest, most dangerous thing I've heard in the last 5 minutes. And that is even trumping Rosie O'Donnell. We've heard that there are some issues with staff. Absolutely. A million different questions, and none of it has to do with a 500-year flood, because we've had 2 in the last year. So what is it? It ain't climate change. We can debunk that every which way if anybody wants to have a logical, real conversation about it. Who is fiddling with the weather? Is that something that you guys thought? Because if you haven't, did you know it exists? Because we've talked about all the jazz in the sky. We've talked about all of those chemtrails and other things going on in the sky. And people are like, no, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Until you realize that there are all sorts of cloud seeding companies out there. And it sounds pretty good, right? Well, you know, we have drought, we have really arid areas. Wouldn't it be neat if we could chemically do something weird and go up with a drone into the atmosphere and create rain? Well, we know they already do that. What else are they doing? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a curious truth teller, and the mom in me smells BS. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, isn't it curious how Elon Musk's AI tool Grok blamed President Trump? Buckle up. I got it all next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Okay, we gotta listen to that. She'll be back here about the 35, 36 minute mark. So let me go ahead and get it up to there. There's Grok, her behind the scenes guy.
That's not conspiratorial.
For together. They wrote girls' names on their bodies.
All right, let me
Probably
back up just.
program. There's some headlines on the New York Post this morning that just crossed recently that I find particularly vile. How about this one? Pediatrician fired for vile post suggesting Texas flood victims were Trump supporters who got what they voted for. There's some people who will not be saved. She's one of them. How about this? Sisters killed in Texas floods, found with their hands locked together, while grandparents remain missing. Or this one. Teen camp counselors describe a harrowing moment. They wrote girls' names on their bodies in case they were swept away in floodwaters. Do I need to go into that for you? No. Because I know you're there with me. So when I go into this whole, is there no agreed upon time in which we can all just shut up and just feel for a minute? Or has some people lost that ability? Have you become so cold that you're almost like a fairy tale person whose heart turns to stone? That there is no more pulsing. There is no more empathy. There is no more feeling. I mean, is that what we're dealing with? Because the speed with which the finger pointing and the race to the bottom came out is just breathtaking. But here's what I know about America. You might not have a microphone like I do, but you're hearing everything and you're seeing everything. And though you might not be speaking about it, this gets baked into how you feel, into how you vote, into which voices resonate with you. Your BS-o-meter is so well trained that it's almost instantaneous now that somebody says something and you go, wait a minute. How about this? This is a headline. Elon Musk's XAI tool called Grok blamed Donald Trump cutting National Weather Service funds or some other such nonsense for the deaths of those young people and all of the others who we will find out about in painstaking detail in the come. Is that just gross? So I want to read you what it said because it got fact-checked by actual real-time community notes. Here we go. Here was the question posited by somebody named Claude Taylor. Yes or no? This is to the AI tool, Grok. Yes or no? Did 24 girls, young girls, die in Texas flooding, in part because Trump gutted NOAA in the National Weather Service, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and National Weather Service? Response from Grok. Yes. Trump's 2025 cuts slashed NOAA and NWS funding by approximately 30% and staff by 17%, impairing forecast accuracy. Warnings underestimated rainfall, contributing to inadequate alerts for the flash floods that killed, at that point, 24 and left around 24 Camp Mystic girls missing, presumed dead in ongoing searches. Wow. That's your artificial intelligence? That's what everybody and his brother is banking on? Ladies and gentlemen, it's a new form, to me, of propaganda. All wrapped, baked into the shell of, well, it's artificial intelligence. It's not wrong. Really? Well, the Associated Press responded. Shockingly, it was the AP who responded and was like, you know what? Not sure. The Associated Press reports the National Weather Service had, in fact, extra staff on duty in the region where floods wreaked havoc in Texas. The number of staff there were more than doubled in the office, a major blow to the Democrat narrative blaming budget cuts. George Stephanopoulos Do better, you feckless twit. Have you learned nothing? You cannot get out of your own way. Your hatred for one man because of whatever he does to you. Have you ever allowed one person to consume you? To basically run your world, control your emotions, to literally turn you inside out and turn you into something that you're not? Because that's what's going on. This is called years of propaganda on the left. And I directly blame these corporate-controlled media outlets of suck. And I agree with President Trump that CNN and the New York Times and others should be held responsible for their blatant manipulation and lies. The Associated Press has to come out on the white horse and say, actually, X, your AI tool is full of crap, to which the tool Grok responds. I appreciate the call out. Upon reviewing diverse sources, and these are the sources, Wired, Forbes, National Weather Service records, etc. National Weather Service Austin and San Antonio issued accurate, timely warnings. A flood watch 15 plus hours ahead. Flash flood warning 3 plus hours prior, despite Trump's Doge cuts. 500 plus staff lost. Cuts didn't compromise this forecast. Local communication lags were key. Blame on Trump for deaths is unsubstantiated here. Facts matter. Well, no, duh. Why did you get it wrong the first time if you're so smart? See, it's a product of the information inputted into it. Really? You mean to tell me sort of like when Facebook was fact checking us? Because that was a kick in the pants, right? Some 21-year-old punk, whatever, some progressive is sitting behind a keyboard fact checking us? Well, it's curious. If the person fact checking is a lunatic, what kind of facts are you going to get? Not really good ones. And then that moves us into this realm. Marjorie Taylor Greene, over the weekend, it introduces a bill to make geoengineering illegal. What? It's almost like everybody knows that people out there are fiddling with the freaking weather. Representative Greene pushes weather modification ban. This from newsnationnow.com. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said Saturday she plans to introduce a bill to restrict weather modification. Quote, I'm introducing a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purpose of altering weather, temperature, climate, or sunlight intensity. It will be a felony offense, she wrote in a Saturday night post on X. I've been researching weather modification and working with the Legislative Council for months, writing this bill. The Georgia lawmaker said the legislation would resemble Florida's Senate Bill number 56, signed into law by Ron DeSantis late last month. The text makes it illegal for individuals to practice geoengineering and weather modification by imposing a $100,000 fine and a 5-year prison sentence. The punishment would apply to cloud seeding, an 80-year-old technology that adds tiny particles, usually silver iodide crystals, to clouds to trigger rain or snow, as defined by the Government Accountability Office. Some states have practiced the measure, but it's rarely been undertaken by federal jurisdictions. So what is this exactly? Is it possible that somebody out there could tinker with the weather and create biblical rain? I don't know. But shouldn't we be talking about it? Sean Ryan did on his podcast. He had the CEO of a company called Rainmaker on his show. This is a cloud seeding geoengineering company. And what it does is it uses weather-resistant drones to increase precipitation and novel radar hardware to measure how much man-made precipitation is created. Listen to the guy, the CEO, his name is Augustus Dorico. He's the CEO of Rainmaker, telling Sean Ryan, yeah, we've been doing this for a while.
So to give you the overview of what cloud seeding is, About 93% of all of the liquid and ice water that traverses the lower atmosphere over the US. So the water in the clouds, right? About 93% of that doesn't precipitate over land. It just evaporates away or gets recycled by the oceans. That means that there's a ton of water up there that's just going to waste that you can bring down. So certain clouds that aren't naturally precipitating or that aren't very efficiently precipitating, you can identify those with radar. You can measure that there's liquid in them that isn't coming down, fly a drone up into them, disperse a material that freezes the liquid in the cloud. And we can talk about what that material is later, but disperse a material that freezes the liquid in the cloud into big, heavy snowflakes that become heavy enough to fall down. And if it's warm beneath the cloud, melt into rain. If it's cold, stay as snow. And so if you just blast a cloud, right, and then it rains, that isn't necessarily proof that you caused it to rain, right? Like maybe you're just good at picking clouds that were going to rain anyway. Mm-hmm. And so nobody could really justify doing this at scale up until 2017. And what changed then was the National Center of Atmospheric Research, an organization called NCAR out in Colorado. They realized if you have the right wavelength of radar, of dual polarization radar, which I'll talk about again in a sec too. But if you have the right kind of radar and you fly in a zigzag, right, or in a circle or in your initials, and you only see precipitation on the radar in your flight track, then you can say, oh, that is definitively man-made because we flew in this zigzag or we flew in this spiral and there's only precipitation occurring in that shape. They did that in Idaho in 2017 multiple times. And that was the very first time that people were able to show, one, that it was unambiguously working, and two, that they can measure how much water they put on the ground. And so most folks, even in the scientific community, are still catching up to speed with this tech. The regulatory community, some people know about it, think it's cool. Some people think that it doesn't exist. Some people don't know the difference between cloud seeding and geoengineering and a bunch of other stuff. But
I'm in that category.
We'll talk about that then.
Yeah, I'm in that category too, right? You're like, wait a minute, this seems really out there. Does it? Does it? When we come back on the Wendy Bell Radio.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. Let me quickly get into this and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I am following the channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. Oh, yep, that's Wendy Bell. Let's jump back here, and I want to share some more information with you from We the People Voice, talking about chemtrails. Task Force bus DARPA plot to spray mRNA bioweapon across. So, okay, so there's no regulations really for cloud seeding or chemtrails. I think Tennessee, though, has made it illegal to do chemtrails, and you heard the geoengineering thing in Florida. So some states are catching up, but I think it needs to be a national state. You do it, I live here in Indiana. You do it in Illinois, and it's going to drift over here into Indiana, or depending on which way the wind's blowing. If you do it in Ohio, it's going to come here in Indiana or Kentucky, float up to Indiana or Michigan, whatever. And it's the same thing with whatever your state. If the state next to you or above you or below you is doing this, you're going to get some of this shit too. So let's come over here and see what We the People's Voice has to say about chemtrails, bioattack thwarted. Let's hope so. All right.
The events would have been blamed on a foreign adversary like Iran, triggering global shockwaves and possibly World War III. But thanks to a stream of classified intel from deep inside the system, the Chemtrails Task Force moved in just in time and stopped the operation before it could begin. Now the question is, who was really behind it? And how close did we come to catastrophe? Before we dive in, a quick word about our partner VP.net, the next generation of private browsing. VP.net indicated.
That is not happening in my agency. We don't do that. It's done, we think, by DARPA. And a lot of it now is coming out of the jet fuel.
Yes, sir.
So, those materials are put in jet fuel. I'm going to do everything in my power to stop it. We're bringing on somebody who's going to think only about that, find out who's doing it, and holding them accountable.
But that was just the beginning. The task force has been hard at work, monitoring social media for geotagged information about heavy spray zones. Shadowy government departments and private foundation have been infiltrated. And now, the results are speaking for themselves. According to whistleblower Dr. David Martin, July the 4th was meant to be a cover for a mass casualty event unlike anything we've seen before. A coordinated aerial release of an aerosolized bioweapon across major cities in the United States. The death toll? Projected at 280,000 Americans, men, women, and children. And here's the kicker. It was never meant to look like an inside job. The blame, Martin claims, was to be pinned squarely on a foreign adversary.
And we sit back in this stunned mullet silence of going, clearly they're not going to do it again. Well, bad news for everybody. Tom Ridge, that's right, the Secretary of Homeland Security, when it was first established under the Bush administration, collaborated with a group of people to come up with a scenario in which they are calling for, and listen carefully to what I'm going to say, the death of 280,000 Americans on July 4th, 2025. There is a plan that involves the murder of 280,000 Americans on a single day. And the best part of it is they're going to blame a foreign actor for it, except for a tiny little problem.
It doesn't take much to guess who the scapegoat was going to be: Iran. This wasn't just about poisoning the air, water, and soil we need for life. It was about global chaos and escalation, about lighting the fuse for a global conflict, World War III, engineered by the same elite interests that profit from destruction, division, and death. Because for them, war isn't tragedy, it's strategy.
Yeah, if you hop down to page 9 of that National Blueprint for Biodefense, Seth, and highlight the first major paragraph under the U.S. House of Representatives, let's go ahead, for the sake of everybody on here, make sure that we read it. We were attacked, and we don't know who did the attack, but the infectious agent they used killed 280,000 Americans and infected at least 400,000 throughout the country on a single day, in addition to 200,000 dead and 800,000 sickened animals. Now, if you scroll up for a moment, Seth, and keep going until I tell you to stop, just keep scrolling, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. What you're going to find when you get to this page, oh, there you go. Look at ex officio members. If you look at the ex officio members of this particular committee, there are two names that I want to call your attention to: Gerald W. Parker and George Post. Those names are names that people should be familiar with, but they are not. These are veterinary scientists and gain-of-function scientists who have done an enormous amount of work in a variety of pathogens. George Post famously was very much involved in the Arizona contribution to the gain-of-function research that brought us COVID-19 and all of those kinds of things. And here we have the same actors. In this case, we have the ability to go into their research and find out what kind of pathogen would go after humans and animals on the same day.
So, while the mainstream media keeps you distracted with celebrity scandals and political theatre, what have these shady operators really been up to behind the curtain of silence and state-sanctioned anonymity? The answer is chilling. The government, using your tax dollars, has been quietly funding research into the very kind of bioweapons we're warning you about. Not just aerosolized mRNA agents, but something even more disturbing: self-spreading vaccines. That's right, vaccines engineered to behave like viruses, to replicate, to evolve, to spread from person to person without consent, without control. This isn't speculation, it's not theory. We have the documents, the grants, the patents, the contracts. They've been planning this for years, and now they're trying to turn the key.
So we started pulling grants, and we could see that there was funding going to aerosolized COVID vaccines. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery that we made. This is what led us to the discovery that our government's funding research on transmissible vaccines or self-spreading vaccines. And so the High Wire covered this. Jeffrey Jackson did a report on this. And so what we've been doing is we've been building off of the research that was done to basically see what is going on with these transmissible vaccines. And again, as a reminder for anyone who maybe missed the segment, they're developing vaccines that would essentially act like a live virus where it could basically replicate itself into new hosts. And so the idea is that we know that viruses evolve and change, but our vaccines are static. So they wanted to create vaccines that would evolve and change.
Good God. I know we've covered this, but you want to talk about playing God. And this is where to me, it's just gone wild.
Those who play God are doing the devil's work. And in the case of this plot against the people, that's not exaggeration, it's cold, brutal truth. Because anybody willing to release a bioweapon on innocent civilians isn't just corrupt, they're evil. To them, we're not citizens, we're test subjects. Useless eaters, collateral damage. But even the powerful have a weakness. And that's exactly how the Chemtrails Task Force stopped the July the 4th attack before it could unfold. How did they do it? And what's going to happen to the perpetrators? We'll break it down right after this message from our sponsor. Let's be real. We've all been fed the lie that wrinkle creams are the...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that here. I'm like 8 minutes into this 19-minute video. And folks, the link to this video is in the description box. I encourage you to watch the rest of this, but I want to get on with some other information here. I mean, this is some scary stuff. Scary stuff. I've been talking about chemtrails for a long time. Okay, so, this is nothing new. I'm following the channel here on the People's Voice. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and move on down to Devory Darkins. CNN suffers humiliating setback after experts fact-check Texas flash floods. All righty, let's see what Devory has to say.
Maria, we're also learning that there were significant staffing shortfalls of the National Weather Service's offices in the region.
George, as of right now, the local county officials really didn't want to address that just yet. What they are telling us is they expected between 4 and 6 inches of rain. That is what weather experts told them, the National Weather Service as well. They also knew that in remote locations, they might get anywhere from 8 to 10 inches. But this amount of rain in such a short amount of time, it was very difficult to navigate. And when the Department of Homeland Security Secretary was here just yesterday, she acknowledged this was an issue. She was going to take these concerns to the White House as well and try and see if there was anything they could do to revamp the system. She says the president is committed to it.
Okay, so we start off this video showing you exactly what's wrong with the media, and I'm going to share the facts with you. You can make up your own mind on who you trust more, but think about this for a second. There is no county flood warning system that exists, similar to a tornado siren. That was proposed in this county 7 years ago. It says it right here. Kelly said the county considered a flood warning system along the river that would have functioned like a tornado warning siren about 6 or 7 years ago. But what happened? The public rejected it because of the cost. So that's my point number one. Point number two, Weather Service had extra staffers that night. Here it is. Where the office would typically have 2 forecasters on duty during clear weather, they had up to 5 on staff. Quote, there were extra people in here that night, and that's typical in every weather service office. You staff up for an event and bring people in on overtime, hold people over. So bottom line is up front, the media is going to lie to people blatantly, and they don't care about the facts. They want to blame President Trump, but there's no connection here. Let me show you another example.
And just talking about the federal government and even the local government, 2 Texas National Weather Service offices involved in forecasting and warning about flooding on the Guadalupe River are missing some key staff members. A director of the NWS union told CNN that the Austin San Antonio office is missing a warning coordination meteorologist due to the Trump administration's buyouts. Do you have any indication whether those or other cuts helped play a role in the fact that the people in the flood zone were not prepared and certainly not evacuated?
I can't say that conclusively, but I do think that it should be. And I don't think it's helpful to have missing key personnel from the National Weather Service not in place to help prevent these tragedies. And, when I say that we ought to do everything possible to help prevent a tragedy like again, that's part of what I mean.
All right. Now, before we move any further, if you guys have been getting value from our channel, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support us further, go to the link in the description below, buy us a cup of coffee, or shop our merch store. We got multiple new shirt designs. We got I Support ICE. We got MAGA Pack. And we also have Alligator Alcatraz. And all of them, you can get with a matching coffee mug as well. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now, in both clips I just showed you from ABC to CNN, both of the guests actually pushed back on the statement that the host is trying to make. Slopinopoulos is trying to lead the reporter on the ground in a certain narrative. She doesn't even buy it. And then the congressman out of Texas, he doesn't even buy it because he's a Democrat. He cannot go on CNN and clearly state that this was caused due to budget cuts because he knows the facts are not there. And that's how sick the media can be. Now, the one thing that they don't want to tell you is they can come up with all these bright ideas about what could be different, what they should fix, what should be installed. But ultimately, you know who's going to decide that? It's the people who live in the area. They will have to vote on that. But why talk about that when you can continue to do the same song and dance you always do, which is to try to blame this event on climate change? Take a listen.
How much do you think the changing climate is part of what we are seeing go on here? Not just what we're seeing in the pictures that we're showing on the screen, but even the flood that you talked about in San Antonio in June.
No, I think climate change is obviously a part of it. These floods are happening more often in more parts of the country and really all over the world. And so we have to face that reality and be better prepared for it and combat it.
All right. So since they want to talk about climate change, let's talk about it. Let's talk about when we are purposely changing the climate in the atmosphere to produce more precipitation. That's exactly what cloud seeding is. And it's happening in Texas, among other states as well. Now, let me do something that the media fails to do. Is it true that cloud seeding in America exists? Yes. Is it true that it causes more rainfall? That is true. Is it true that cloud seeding operations are happening in areas that are known to be flood zones, like Carroll County? That is true. But is it true that cloud seeding caused the flooding? No, there's no evidence of that. You see, it's not that difficult, CNN. You could tell the truth. I mean, these guys are a joke. However, if you guys want to go look this up yourself, it's called North American Weather Modification Council. And by the way, to be fair, according to them, cloud seeding only has a minimal effect on the amount of rainfall that will drop in an area. I think you guys should know that as well. However, again, it doesn't matter about the facts because when you have trunk derangement syndrome, all logic goes out the window. And here is another example of that. Take a look.
And what a horror story in Texas. The flash floods in Texas, the Guadalupe River. 51 missing, 51 dead, more missing. Children at a camp. And you know, when the president guts all of the early warning systems and the weathering forecast abilities of the government, these are the results that we're going to start to see on a daily basis because he's put this country in so much danger by his horrible, horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law.
Now, just personally speaking here, this is the type of coverage from the mainstream media that makes me so motivated to do my show because they blatantly lie to the American people. They think you're stupid, that you're not going to do your research. That's why I'm always encouraging you to think for yourself. And I show you what both sides are saying, not to annoy you, but that you're aware of the narratives that are out there and why some people in your life, when you have conversation with them, you're probably left thinking, what the heck are they thinking? Where are they getting this information from? They're getting their information from people like this. They're that delusional. So you just got to be aware. Now, here's what Speaker of the House Mike Johnson had to say that actually triggered a lot of people on the left. But I echoed the same sentiment. Take a look.
State and federal resources have just poured into that area. Is there anything more that can be done congressionally, legislatively to help these folks?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp. We also had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we know to do at this moment is pray. Every available resource has been deployed. The president, of course, is dialed in and watching this develop moment by moment as we are, and we'll handle supplemental funding requests as they come in. But right now, they're still trying to do rescue and recovery, and our hearts go out to all of them.
All right, so I don't know if you guys know this about me or not, but I used to have a particular bad habit when I was serving in the military. Now, thankfully, I was able to kick this bad habit cold turkey, but I know most people are not that lucky. That's why I'm proud to partner with today's sponsor.
Okay, he's going to go into another commercial. This video does come from Devory Darkins. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. He's going to talk more about this subject. And again, the link to this video is in the description box below. So if you would like to see the rest of it, by all means, please do so. All right, let's come down here and finish this up with Robert Gouveia. Mamdani's black explanation disproven by the administration documents. All right. Well, let's see. This is the Democrat mayoral candidate in New York City. So let's see what Robert has to say. If this. Oh, hang on. I got to get your video back in the right place and actually share that screen. Huh? Amazing. Okay.
Now. Oh, really? Whoa. Okay, who is this dude? McFarland. Who is this? Commie Mamdani in some hot water over an application to college where he checked a couple of extra boxes that maybe he shouldn't have checked. And Mayor Adams is dunking on him for this. He posted this. Zohran Mamdani identified as Asian and African American on a college application. And all the Mamdani commies are all very supportive of him now. And they're coming to his defense saying, well, he has a complex background, okay? He came from Uganda. And so he just checked the boxes to make sure that it was most representative of him. And he has a whole explanation for it. But we actually have the documents that he would have filled out. You see, this is from the actual Columbia application. And this was from the 2009-2010 first year admissions. So this is probably what he would have been filling out as part of the application. So we'll come back to that to see what he says he filled out and then what he could have filled out right here in these boxes, right? Why did he check black and Asian when he could have clicked any one of these additional options like other and explained himself? Anyways, we'll come back to that. So the New York Times posted this, and here was the Mamdani. And look at this poor black man back here and this poor Asian woman. And they're so confused by this. Well, that guy's not black, says this black man. He's not an Asian person, says the Asian woman. Very confusing to everybody. Wow, strange. So the New York Times is in agreement. They posted this. They said, Mamdani identified as Asian and African American on college applications. Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat running for mayor of New York, was born in Uganda. Now, he doesn't consider himself black, but he said the application didn't allow for the complexity of his background. And I don't know about you, but that looks like a pretty dang complex thing here. All right. Biracial, Caucasian white, Chino Mexicano, Middle Eastern, Native American, American Indian, Southeast Asian, other. He could have just filled out other. Like, I don't know what's so complex about that. Just other. I'm Ugandan, but my lineage is, I don't know what he is. Is he Middle Eastern? I don't know. He could have checked that plus an other. Like, why did he have to check black and Asian? Huh. So the New York Times says, okay, he doesn't consider himself black. Says, as he runs for mayor, this has become a big deal. And a lot of people are latching onto it. Even Mayor Adams had another post about it in addition to that one. He says, I want the records, baby. We'll come back. Now, but as a high school senior in 2009, Mamdani, the Democrat commie, claimed another label when he applied to Columbia. Asked to identify his race, he checked a box that he was Asian, but also Black or African American. That's according to internal data that came from a hack in Columbia of their data. And that got shared with the New York Times via someone who passed the documents off to someone else. Now, Columbia, like many elite universities, used a race-conscious affirmative action admissions program at the time. Remember, they'd say, oh, you're Black. That's great. You can come in here. But you're white, though. You're not coming in. Get out. Reporting his race was Black or African American, in addition to Asian, could have given an advantage to Kami Mamdani, who was born in Uganda and spent his earliest years there. Now, in an interview on Thursday, Mamdani said that he did not consider himself Black or African American, but rather an American who was born in Africa. He said his answers on the college application were an attempt to represent his complex background, given the limited choices before him, not to gain an upper hand in the admissions process. And he was not accepted to Columbia. I don't know, maybe they found out like this dude's not a Black Asian dude. What? No. So I don't know if that backfired on him or what, but that doesn't even make any sense. Here's the document that we just saw from the admissions of Columbia application, first year admissions. You want to go to Columbia? Here's what you got to do. Follow the deadlines. Here's the instructions. Don't lie on it. And just be honest. Fill out the form. Here's the university policies. Here's the different university codes. Put your name and address in there. Where'd you go to school? Where are you a citizen? He would say Uganda, right? So you don't need to say you're Black. You just write Uganda right there. Uganda. That's what that says. Financial aid and ethnicity. Now, this information is optional there, dude. You don't have to fill it out. Please respond to questions 1 and 2 for record keeping and reporting requirements. Ridiculous. Are you Hispanic or Latino, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South, Central American, Spanish, or others? Yes or no? What is your race? Select one or more of the following categories. So Mamdani says, well, Asian sounds good. And how about Black and African American? That sounds good. But you also have this other form, additional information. Now, Columbia attempts to draw students from diverse ethnic and racial backgrounds and kick out white people. This section will allow you to tell us a bit more about your background as identified above. Oh, wait a minute. There's a whole separate section here to address the complexity of what you're doing. Please further self-identify yourself as a member of one or more of the following groups and add more specific information about where relevant, like tribal affiliation or country of origin. So you're going to put all that in there. Many more options. Alaskan, biracial, multiracial, Caucasian, Chicano, Dominican, Hawaiian, Middle Eastern, Native American, Pacific Islander, or other. Oh, could have explained it. Put your extracurricular activities in here and sign your name right there. Applicant information, you get the rest of it. So he could have explained a lot of it. It's not like he's boxed in. He's like, I only had like 5 boxes, so that's all I could do. Most applications don't have a box for Indian Ugandans, so I checked multiple boxes trying to capture the fullness of my background. Well, just explain it. On the next line, the application allowed students to provide more specific information, and Mamdani said that he wrote in Ugandan. Now, even though these boxes are constraining, I wanted my college application to reflect who I was. So we haven't seen that. Now, while neither Mamdani nor Columbia could provide the template for the application, we just looked at it, the Times could not find any speeches or interviews in which Mamdani referred to himself as Black and said he can't recall describing himself as anything. Now, in his meteoric rise, Mamdani has proactively embraced his Muslim and South Asian ancestry in his pitch to New Yorkers. On Tuesday, the AP declared he was the decisive winner, and Mayor Adams is coming out and hitting him over this. While Mamdani was not the target of any hack, there was information that was included. The data was shared with this guy, Kremu, on Substack on X. Says he provided the data under condition of anonymity, although his data has been made public elsewhere. He is an academic who opposes affirmative action, often writes about IQ and race. The data included information on the applicant's citizenship status, national origin, and other things. It did not include a PDF or image of Mamdani's full application. Now, while still investigating this, Columbia has not validated the information in the article. The Times tested the data by successfully cross-referencing a dozen Columbia alumni from classes of 1989 to 2014 based on their middle names and birthdays, and Mamdani did not dispute the veracity of the information on the applications. He's like, I probably did. Mamdani's father was a professor at Columbia at the time he applied, and the dad is still there. They didn't accept the professor's kid. Wow, that application must have been terrible. Mamdani has said he never really wanted to go to a university where his father was a professor anyways. So I went to Bedoin in Maine, where he majored in Africana studies. Incredible. He's kind of like Kamala Harris, huh? kind of claiming something that he's not. Weird. Why do they all do that? Why do they say that there's something that they're not? Is there something wrong with them? Mr. Mamdani's self-identification as both Black or African American and Asian on his application points to the heterogeneity of his background and his upbringing as an Indian Ugandan. He was born in Uganda to an acclaimed film director who grew up in India, came to the U.S. Both of his parents are of Indian descent, but his father's family came to East Africa more than 100 years ago. When asked if any family had intermarried in the East, he said no, they're all Indian origin from Gujarat. His family moved to New York around the time Mahmoud Mamdani joined Columbia faculty in 99, then they moved in there. Now, he's talked to predominantly Black audiences. Mamdani has stressed his African roots. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, he tells Black people. So I'm like you. I was given my middle name Kwame by my father, who named me after the first prime minister of Ghana. We won our independence from the British, so I'm just like you, just like Kamala tried to do and Hillary with her hot sauce. So Mamdani was elected to the New York State Assembly in 2022, continued to grapple with his racial identity, just like Kamala did, successfully co-sponsoring legislation requiring that when the state collects demographic data, it include categories of other descents. Right-wing Republicans are dumping on him, obviously, because we're just right-wingers. Here's the story from the New York Post. It says, incumbent Mayor Adams has now asked for the release of the full records. The Queens lawmaker was not yet a citizen at the time and was naturalized back in 2018, Mamdani. He holds dual citizenship in the U.S. and Uganda. In another portion of the application, he clarified that he was Ugandan. Somewhere else on the application is what the report is. But Adams was appalled by this, especially for skirting around a system. Mayor Adams, love it, says, this is an insult to every student who got into college the right way without trying to lie about being Black. The African-American identity is not a checkbox of convenience, Mamdani. It's a history, a struggle, and a lived experience. For someone to exploit that for personal gain is deeply offensive. I agree with that. His campaign went a step further, accusing Mamdani of possibly having taken away an admission offer from a true African American. Oh, that's brutal. I love that too.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there and move on. But let me show you first that this video does come from Robert Gouveia. I'm following the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Just wanted to get you something a little different in here other than, you know, weather manipulation and cloud seeding and the flood in Texas. It was a horrible thing, but I wanted to get you updated on that. And again, the mainstream media are the liars that we cannot trust. It's amazing how much they lie. Okay, getting back here to the description box. Now, these 4 videos, again, the links to these videos are in the description box down here. If you want to just slide down here is the video you're looking at. You slide down here and open that description box. There's a show more link there. If you click that, it expands that out. You can have the links to all these videos that I shared with you if you want to watch more of this information. Great information. And I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this information out for these producers, but I do get the satisfaction of putting some information together so that you can have the truth, you know, rather than the lies and propaganda, as you've seen multiple times, the lies and the propaganda that the mainstream media and Democrats push out. All right, so all these videos that I shared with you today come from videos that I've posted here at Murtec.com, and there's a link to Murtec.com in the description box as well. You can come over here. I've got all kinds of over 55 videos here. Here's the one from Devory Darkins that I shared with you. Right down here's Wendy Bell that I shared with you. Right there's from Devory Darkins, and this is the video that I shared with you about the chemtrails from the People's Report. So, folks, I didn't have time to share all of it, but I will have a daily news wrap-up that I'm putting together. I'll have that ready about 9:30 of all kinds of information that took place today, that was released today. And again, it's no nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth, the kind of information that you're not going to find on the mainstream media. So for the meantime, I do want to thank you for the time you spent with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.